Hello, everybody, and welcome to week one, video one of TKE's virtual member education program. My name is Alex Swenson, very excited to be with you, and I'm very excited to be able to share with you a new initiative that we've taken on in this time where a lot of us are home, a lot of us are maybe a little disconnected with the fraternity, where the offices of the Grand Chapter is going to take steps to continue educating you as members in TKE. Now, this could be new members, this could be candidates, guys who have just joined the fraternity and maybe their new member education program got cut short, or maybe it didn't start at all. But this is also intended for everyone, for the officers, for the alumni even, who need a little refresher, a little update on their TKE knowledge base, as well as focusing on some different areas that are going to be beneficial to your life. And I'll touch on that as we get a little further into the presentation. But we'll get going here. Again, this is week one. This is our first video. So welcome to all of you who are starting from scratch with us. The focus of this video is really going to be on the first two chapters of the TKE guide, which include our pillars, our values, and our expectations of membership. Again, my name is Alex Swenson. I'm the Director of Education for the fraternity. That means a couple of things. One, I do a lot of planning for our conferences and events, think Conclave, RLCs, Leadership Academy. All of that planning and execution falls under the umbrella of the programs and the education team. Secondarily, as the title might suggest, I play a large role in our ongoing educational initiatives, new member education, alumni education, general member education, and obviously this program is very much included in that description. We're here right now and for the next 4 weeks because things have gone a little haywire. Again, for our new members, maybe you were 2 weeks into your 6-week process. Maybe you were 7.5 weeks into your 8-week new member education process. Whatever the case may be, we at headquarters understand that things have gone a little crazy, that you're not able to educate your members as you originally intended to and originally expected to be able to when this semester started. So we want to help you carry that on. We want to provide some resources and materials that are going to either A, educate your members and your new members starting from zero and building from the ground up, or B, enhancing the process that was already in place and leading into an initiation of your new members, hopefully still taking place this semester. So really that's how it fits into the existing new member education is it can be a supplement or it can be the only thing. This program was built either way. So don't feel bad if you're a hegemon and you don't really know where to go. You don't really know what steps to take next to educate your candidates. That's what these videos are for. And if you're a new member who's lost touch with your hegemon or has lost touch with your chapter a little bit as everyone's trying to get settled in and figure out what's going on, this is for you to build that base layer of TKE knowledge and build that base layer of knowledge that's going to help you be a better man and a better person throughout your time in college and hopefully throughout your life. And then the last point there I've already talked about. This is not just a new member education program. Yes, that is one of the main benefits of what we're doing, but also this information is going to be applicable no matter where you are in your TKE experience. I know for me personally, I joined the fraternity in the fall of 2009. I read the TKE guide, went through all that fun stuff with new member education, and then I couldn't tell you the next time I opened the TKE guide until I started working for headquarters. So if that's you, if you haven't touched your TKE guide, maybe dust it off, maybe give yourself a quick refresher. It's good to remind ourselves of who we are as TKEs, who we are as an organization, and why we joined the fraternity. And again, these lessons, these conversations that we're going to have are going to speak directly to that throughout this entire month. We want to first answer why this is important. Why is education important? Why is new member education important? And the first step is that it's really your onboarding into the fraternity. Think of if you start a job or you start an internship, there's a time period, whether it's a day or whether it's a week or 2 weeks, or in some cases even longer than that, where you learn how to be an employee of that organization. You learn the corporate lingo, you fill out your tax forms, you go through some different training pieces, learn the different systems and processes. That's really what we're doing as members of TKE. We're learning what it takes to be Tekes, and we're learning what the organization stands for, why you joined, and why it's important that you're here. So the onboarding piece is huge. Secondarily, you're using this time to build relationships within your chapter, with the existing initiated brothers, as well as the brothers in your pledge class. Those are some of the closest relationships that get built, I think, throughout your entire time in the fraternity, are those within your pledge class. And this new member education period specifically is designed to help enhance that process and give you a better opportunity to forge those relationships that will hopefully exist throughout your entire time in college, and even beyond that, throughout your entire life. It gives you a chance to understand what you're joining. I talked about the job comparison earlier. If you start a new job, you want to have an understanding of the organization you're working for, much in the same way that you want to have an understanding of the organization in Teke that you've committed to, that you've joined, that you're going to be a part of throughout your time in college and throughout your time as an alumnus. And the education process will give you a lot of that information, and beyond just a base layer of, oh, I like the guys in the chapter or the colony, and you know, they all seem pretty cool, so I decided to accept my bid. There's a lot more to it than that, a lot more to Teke than that, and that's a good reason to join the organization. But we also need to beef up that knowledge base about Teke as a whole and about the international fraternity. It helps you build a connection to the organization as well. A lot of what I just mentioned with the understanding, you know, the more you know about fraternity, about an organization, the closer to it you're going to feel. And so hopefully we can do that again, whether you're a new member or whether you got initiated 3 years ago. Hopefully we can help to build that connection either from scratch or enhance the connection that's already been built. And then lastly, some of the other development topics that we're going to talk about, which are on the next slide, those are going to help you develop your abilities and contribute them. And that's right there in the bond that we take when we join the organization. A little spoiler for those who have not been initiated yet, but I think we can bounce back from it. Develop your abilities and contribute them. That means building an environment of lifelong learning, of lifelong personal development, not just joining the fraternity and coasting through the rest of your college experience and through the rest of your life. And some of the things that we're going to talk about this month are going to speak directly to that, about how you can not only be a better member of Teke, but how you can be a better friend, a better citizen, a better brother, son, partner, whatever your position is in life. We want to give you some tools and some tips and some tricks to improve in those aspects as well. So a quick preview of what we're looking at the next 4 weeks. I already talked a little bit about this. We're going to drop 2 videos per week, starting right now, ending at the end of April. One video is going to be focused on some of the Teke skills, the Teke guide readings, the history, the knowledge of the fraternity. And the other video each week is going to focus on life skills. And if you jump down to the bottom there, you'll see some of the different pieces that we're going to talk about. Financial well-being, mental health, some studying tips to make you a better student, some leadership skills. Just, I know that's a vague topic, but how are you going to be a leader and not just someone who joins the fraternity and sits back for 4 years and lets things develop in front of you? How are you going to foster an environment and a strong culture within your chapter during your time in college? That's the second piece of what we want to build through the education process. If you have your Teke guide, that's great, and that's going to be where, again, a lot of this material is drawn from. So hopefully you either have received it recently, or you can dust it off and follow along and do some of the readings that we're asking you to do to stay up to date. If you don't have it, or if you have an old version, we do have an updated version available online, and you can see there it's at tke.org/guides. I believe you'll scroll down all the way to the bottom of the page, and then you can download that as a PDF and use that and read it digitally if you don't have a hard copy. And then the last aspect of what we're bringing are some guest speakers. So I'm personally not going to be the expert on absolutely everything. I hope to have enough knowledge to be able to start the conversation, but there are a lot of really intelligent and experienced people in this fraternity that I'm going to bring in throughout this process to help you gain a better understanding on all of these topics and help you gain a better understanding of exactly what it means to be a TKE. And that starts today with this video. Our CEO, Donnie Aldrich, is going to join us a little later on to talk about what it means to be a TKE and talk about what he as the CEO not only does for you as members, but expects of you as members as well. So we'll dive in here. This is the very first thing that you'll read in the TKE guide, the pillars of Tau Kappa Epsilon, the 6 areas that we focus on as individuals in this fraternity. The first one, scholarship. Obviously, that is a huge aspect of everything that you are doing as a college student. And if you can't stay on top of your studies and you can't make the grades to stay in college, you can't be a member of TKE. So that is extremely important. So that's why scholarship is on that list. Secondarily, character. Who are you when nobody's watching? Who are you when everyone's watching? When the pressure's on? What type of person are you at your core? What is your character? And is it a character that should be a part of this organization? Those are obviously questions hopefully you've already asked yourself by joining TKE, but character is a huge emphasis of us with us as a fraternity. Third piece, leadership. I talked about that on the last slide. It's great to join TKE and it's great to be a part of it, but there's also an expectation that TKE helps you become a leader. And again, that could be in the fraternity, that could be elsewhere on campus, that could be elsewhere in your life, but we want leaders. We want leaders who are part of Tau Kappa Epsilon, who are going to create change and foster the ability to build a strong culture and the ability to lead others. And that's really, I think at its core, what TKE is it's building an organization of leaders. The fourth piece is teamwork. So you can have those first 3, but if you're trying to go at it alone, if you're not able to work with others or you don't want to work with others, you're not going to be successful. Teamwork is a vital part of everything we do in the fraternity and everything we do throughout college and throughout life. The fifth piece is service, giving back to others. Hopefully you know that our number 1 philanthropy goal is to support St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And we've done a lot of really great work as an international organization for St. Jude throughout the last decade. But everyone leads a different life of service. And hopefully while you're supporting St. Jude, you're still volunteering for other organizations. You're still volunteering on campus in your community. And that just goes to making the world a better place. And that reflects very well on you as an individual. And it reflects well on Tau Kappa Epsilon when we have service-based leaders and service-based mindsets. And then lastly, brotherhood. That might be the number 1 reason why you joined, because you felt the sense of brotherhood within the chapter colony that you chose to be a part of. And it is just as important as the other 5, because without brotherhood, we wouldn't have an organization. We wouldn't have those close personal ties that drove people to continue to be a part of TKE, which allows our fraternity to continue to thrive. Next, I want to talk about our core values. So if you're a new member just starting out, you may have already heard these and may have already started to form an understanding of what they mean. Charity, esteem, and love. You're going to learn more throughout this process about the triangle and its significance to the fraternity. You're going to learn more about the Declaration of Principles and what that entails and what that means to Tau Kappa Epsilon. But at its core, this is what TKE is: charity, esteem, and love. The 6 pillars drive us as individuals. Those are the individual characteristics and qualities that we want in our members. Charity, esteem, and love, that's really who we are as an organization. And that's really what everything falls back on. Every decision that we make, every action that we take as TKEs should tie back into those 3 core values. Our expectations of membership. So these are a little different. These are a little longer. They've also been updated recently. So the ones that I'm going to share might not match with what's in your TKE guide directly. I think they'll line up very close. But if you need that updated version, again, go to tkE.org/guides. But there are some very specific expectations laid out in our TKE guide for our members to adhere to throughout their time as TKEs. The first, actively recruit all year. 24/7, 365. I guess 366 since it's 2020. That is the lifeblood of our organization, and without recruitment, Teke would cease to exist. So that is the number one expectation, is that you recruit other people to be a part of this great organization. Second, invest in the success of your chapter colony and the international fraternity for life. From the time that you join Tau Kappa Epsilon, to when you accept your bid, to when you get initiated, to when you graduate and beyond, be invested in the success of Teke. Don't just buy into it for 2 or 3 or 4 years. Don't just play around on the outskirts. Invest yourself in the success of the fraternity. Third, very important, pay your collegiate dues on time. Contribute annually to the international fraternity as an alumnus. The organization would not exist if we didn't have members who were meeting their financial obligations faithfully and on time. And that's why it's right there, number 3 in the expectations of membership, because it is very important that you understand that the fraternity as a whole requires people to be financially responsible in order to continue existing. The fourth piece, and this is one of my personal favorites, conduct yourself as a gentleman at all times. This means treating others the right way, treating women the right way, acting as though every person that's important to you is watching you at all times, acting in a way that would make your fellow brothers proud, your fellow Tekes proud, and not just the guys in your chapter, the guys that built your chapter, the guys that built this fraternity, that built this organization and continue to allow it to thrive. Being a gentleman at all times is maybe the most important thing, in my opinion, when it comes, outside of recruiting, of course, when it comes to what it means to be a Teke. The fifth thing, participate in other activities, college and community activities. Don't just let Teke run your life. And I think the most successful members of this fraternity maybe overexert themselves at times, maybe stretch themselves a little thin, but it's better to do that because it helps you gain new perspectives. It helps you gain different experiences that are going to translate directly back to your time in Tau Kappa Epsilon, and it's going to help you build better habits. It's going to help you be a better leader, a better individual, which again, in turn, is going to build a stronger fraternity. The sixth one there, follow all the rules of the chapter in the international fraternity. This should go without saying, but there are rules and there are regulations that need to be followed as Tekes, and hopefully you have taken some time to understand those, what those are for your chapter, and hopefully you take some time to understand what those are as a Teke through our risk management policies and guidelines, and know that if you don't follow those rules, there are consequences, and there will be things that happen that you might not love, but that's why we put it right there in the expectations of membership. Make sure that you're following the rules of the chapter in the international fraternity. And then lastly, become a life loyal Teke. And this is more so aimed at our graduates, aimed at those who are graduating soon. But by becoming a life loyal Teke, you make a commitment to stay engaged with the fraternity for life. You make a commitment that you're going to read the magazine, that you're going to read our emails, that you're going to watch our videos and see our updates. And that all starts by becoming a life loyal Teke. Rolling right into the next piece, this is a new aspect of the Teke Guide. So again, maybe this isn't something you're seeing in your book, but it is available online. Expectations as an alumnus. We focus a lot on the expectations of the undergrads in the Teke Guide, but it's just as important when you graduate that you're adhering to some of the expectations that are on you as a member of Tau Kappa Epsilon. It's not 4 years in college and then you're done. It is a lifelong commitment. The first, it goes back to number 7 on the last slide. Donate to the fraternity for life. Contribute financially, and that could be whatever you're able to. It's not necessarily a ton of money, but a lot of our costs are driven by undergraduate members adhering to their financial responsibilities. We need our alumni to help pick that up and to help contribute in a larger manner to do the things that we want to do and go the places we want to go as an organization. Volunteer for the fraternity. So maybe you can't contribute financially right off the bat and you're not in a position to be able to do that. You can still give back to the fraternity through your time, through the guidance of others, through making yourself available as a volunteer. Fourth, stay connected with your home chapter. And I think this is an area that a lot of us probably go to first when we graduate, staying connected to the chapter that we joined. But it is very important that you have your finger on the pulse of what's going on, so that if things maybe aren't going as well as they should be, you as a volunteer, you as someone with experience in the fraternity can help to right the ship and turn things around. And maybe things are going great and you just want to be there to help celebrate. And then lastly, update your contact information. This may seem like a small piece, but it is certainly not. By updating your contact information, by keeping the offices of the Grand Chapter current on where you live and your phone number and your email address, you can receive the important communications that we're putting out regularly. It's impossible to stay engaged with the fraternity for life if you don't allow us to engage you by keeping your contact information current. So please ensure you're doing that as an alumnus, and make sure that if you change addresses, change phone numbers, change email addresses, and the long list of things that you have to update when that happens, the fraternity is on there. And then the last piece that I want to touch on directly related to Chapter 1 of the Teke Guide is our mission. And that is to aid men and their mental, moral, and social development for life. That is our mission as an organization. And again, you continue to see for life because of the importance of staying engaged with a fraternity beyond graduation. One of the biggest pet peeves for me is when you meet someone, you're wearing letters and you meet someone out at the grocery store or on an airplane and say, "Oh, I was a Teke." No, you are a Teke. You are a Teke until the day that you die. In the "I was a Teke" language, that's not staying committed to the fraternity for life. So hopefully, if that's something that you say, if you're watching this as an alumnus, you change that mindset. You are a Teke. You still are a Teke, and you always will be. And our mission, whether it's the headquarters, whether it's the Teke Foundation, whether it's the Grand Council, whether it's you as an individual in a chapter, is to aid men in their mental, moral, and social development for life. And again, everything we do as Tekes, everything we do as members should come back to that mission, to enhance the lives of our members mentally, morally, socially for their entire lives. Quickly before I move on, our mission is not better men for a better world. And that's something I know that gets confused a little bit. Better men for a better world is a tagline. And that's something that we still want to emphasize and live by. And obviously it's just as important as anything else, but this is our mission. Better men for a better world is something separate. And there are some other misconceptions that are outlined in the Teke Guide that I would encourage you to take a look at. Some language pieces, some punctuation pieces, things that might seem a little silly on the surface, but are very important when you're talking about the fraternity. If you want to talk about Teke intelligently and knowledgeably, there are things in the Teke Guide that are outlined. It's about a half page, so it's not a ton of reading, that I would encourage you to go back and look at, that maybe help you address some of those misconceptions or when you misspeak on the fraternity moving forward, so that we don't continue to make those same mistakes as an organization. I want to talk quickly about Greek Life 101 and Greek life history, because we're going to spend a lot of time focused on Teke's history, rightfully so. But in order to understand where our organization comes from and who we are, we need to understand why our organization exists in the first place. And that goes back to the very first fraternity. So that was Phi Beta Kappa. And Phi Beta Kappa at William and Mary University was formed in 1776 as the very first fraternity. From there, a number of other organizations were founded. Most of them in the Northeast in Ivy League schools, a few in the South, throughout the early to mid 1800s. And then obviously mid 1800s hit and the Civil War hits. And that really hurt the fraternity system. It caused a lot of organizations to fold, and not a lot came out healthy on the other side. But post-Civil War is really when the fraternity boom took off. And you could probably include Teke in that. Even in 1899, there were 26 fraternities when the Civil War began, and that was dwindled down to very few after the Civil War. But after that, guys were looking for that aspect of brotherhood, togetherness, closeness. There was a great feeling of pride in our country, I think. And going into that was looking for ways to be proud of other organizations, of being a part of something bigger than yourself. And that was started with the Civil War, and with the ending of the Civil War, and really led into a big boom of fraternities in the late 1800s. Fraternities today look very, very different all across the country. There are over 100 fraternities, male fraternities, total in various capacities. There's some different trade organizations I want to touch on quickly because you may see these, you may not have an understanding of what they mean. The NIC is the North American Interfraternity Conference. So this is where a lot of international fraternities belong. It is a larger trade organization that oversees the aspects of different fraternities. Teke is actually not a part of the NIC. There are a few, I guess what we would refer to as unaffiliated international fraternities, and Teke is one of them. But the NIC is the largest. The NPHC then is the National Panhellenic Council, which is largely made up of African American fraternities. That's also referred to as the Divine Nine in some circles. So if you've heard that before, that's the NPHC, and that's how it's different than the NIC. The NALFO, NALFO, that is the National Association of Latino Fraternal Organizations. Sorry, I have to read that for you, but that is for largely Hispanic fraternities, Latino, as is implied in the name there. There is the NAPA, which is the Asian and Pacific Islander fraternities. So that is, again, an even smaller subset, but another trade organization nonetheless. The NPC then is the National Panhellenic Conference, not to be confused with the National Panhellenic Council, which we already talked about. The NPC is sororities, the National Panhellenic Conference. So that is, if you want to compare it to the NIC with fraternities, that is the governing body, the governing organization for sororities. And then the local fraternities. So this is, looks a little different on every campus, but there are a lot of local fraternities out there that are either one-offs on a specific campus that started because of maybe a specific trade or a specific sport decided to form their own fraternity, and it only exists within the confines of a single campus. Or, some are a little more area-based, whether that's in a certain state or a certain city, but those are also unaffiliated and much smaller. However, they are still Greek letter organizations. So I just wanted to touch on those quickly so we had an understanding. As I mentioned, there's over 100 active collegiate male fraternities. Teke is consistently in the top 5 in membership and number of chapters. We are one of the largest international fraternities, and that's something to be very proud of. And those numbers are always changing with the creation of chapters, and at times we lose chapters and members join and members leave. So, I don't want to put a specific number on it, but Teke is one of the largest. And again, that's something that we're very proud of. And I can tell you we are not the largest. And so that gives us something to work toward. That gives us something to build toward, both in chapters and in members, to continue to look at climbing that ladder and jumping to the top of the fraternal world in membership numbers and in chapter numbers. So that's a quick look at Greek life overall, both the history of it and the current status of Greek life, which you probably have an understanding of based on your own campus experience. But of course, it is much larger, and it is international, all over the world, really. And there are a lot of other fraternities and sororities out there that are thriving on their own. I want to move now to a special guest. So we'll jump right in here with Frater Donnie Aldrich. And we are joined now by our CEO at the offices of the Grand Chapter, Frater Donnie Aldrich. Donnie, how we doing?
Good. How are you, Alex? Thanks for having me.
Doing excellent. Thanks for joining us. So one of the big things that we talked about so far in this lesson is the expectations of membership and what it means to be a Teke. And you as CEO, just to paint a picture for the members out there who maybe just joined or maybe have been members for years, what is your main function as the CEO? What is your main job within the fraternity? And how would you describe that to someone who might not have had much contact with our office?
Yeah, the CEO's role is really to be the face of the organization, and that's on many fronts. To interact with the Grand Council, to be the staff leader in terms of hiring the staff, managing the professional staff, and obviously those professional staff members, they then work with our volunteer corps. They have the ability to recruit volunteers as well as to dismiss volunteers if volunteers are not performing, not providing value for our membership. The other aspect in terms of being the CEO is handling contracts, handling legal disputes, being the leader in that aspect. The other piece that I think is extremely critical is to strategically guide the fraternity and always looking to how can we be innovative, how can we be creative, how can we be bold in the planning that we put forward, and ensuring that our collegiate members are having the best experience possible.
Awesome. When it comes to joining Teke, again, as a new member or as an experienced member, what do you believe as the leader of the organization our members are gaining by joining the organization that they might not have had access to otherwise?
It's a great question. We have phenomenal resources. We have phenomenal alumni, and that's one aspect in the answer I just gave that I want to be even clear on. My job and the job of our team is to ensure we're providing great value to our collegiate members, but also that we're providing the fraternity for life. And those alumni members play a key role in providing mentorship, in providing advice, at times providing job opportunities. But folks who, that's one great aspect about the fraternity, in my opinion, is you get to form relationships and meet people. Frankly, it starts in your chapter, and if you do a great job of taking advantage of the fraternity, it bleeds out into every corner of the country, including North America and in our groups in Canada. But the relationships that I've been lucky enough to form with people from all the way from Seattle down to Tampa and LA to Boston has really been overwhelming. I think that's one aspect the fraternity gives you that you're not going to get just being a part of your local college community. It also gives you a lot of life skills that you learn in being part of a chapter and interacting with people who see the world differently than you do. Probably there's people who have different political affiliations than you do, different religious affiliations, people who just have a different way in how they attack the world and how they see the world, as well as you see folks who are phenomenal academically, folks that are phenomenal athletically, spiritually, mentally. So it prepares you for life is what the fraternity does, because you get to interact with all these different folks. And as you know, when you get into the professional world, that's all it is. And this greater world that we live in is interacting with different cultures. And that perspective makes you a better person and prepares you for future success much more rapidly than if you don't join the fraternity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, from my standpoint, it would be the same answer. It's the connections, the relationships, all of that you just wouldn't have access to sitting in your dorm room playing video games 24/7 when you're not at class. Specifically talking to our new members now who may have just joined, who have really been kind of railroaded by our current circumstances, which is being at home and not being able to complete their new member process. If you were to lay down some expectations, some things that they should expect out of their fraternity experience beyond the semester when they get back to campus, what is it that you would say to our new members as far as what they should be looking for, how they can best take advantage of this, and what expectations they should have for being a part of Teke?
Yeah, I would start by hoping that everybody is healthy and safe. That's the first place that I want to start, and that they're following guidelines, CDC guidelines, and washing their hands and keeping physical distancing. But they are warriors, our candidates in this process. I know for you and I, and essentially everyone else who's a living Teke, they've never had to go through this type of process. And so I appreciate their patience. I appreciate their determination in continuing forward in this unique circumstance. I do think that I always want to get advantage of opportunity and see opportunity in everything. The great opportunity is if you want to learn more about the organization, you have time as you're quarantined to go on our website, go look at all the resources, go click on the resource guides. And you could spend a full day just on the website of all the different areas of the fraternity and just reading about it, as well as reading your Teke guide. You can go to the Teke and read that online and learn all about the organization. So for me, the best advice I could give if I were a candidate is how can I go and just digest as much information as possible. And that's actually going to probably prepare you much more than if you were going through a typical candidate process, because obviously there's many commitments that are pulling on you when you're on a college campus. It could be a job, it could be athletics, it could be intramurals, it could be obviously studying, going to class, study hours, any other student organizations that you're involved with. So as all those things are pulling on us, as well as obligations with family and friends, this time where we're bunkered in can really give you a chance to study and learn more about the organization. So when you do come back to campus, when you are able to have some of those interactions, you're even more prepared mentally on what you can take advantage of, what are the expectations of our members day in and day out, and how you can champion the fraternity further when you get the chance to be on campus.
Yeah, and that leads right into my next question, where we've talked a lot about expectations in general, but from the offices of the Grand Chapter, as the leader of our staff, as the leader of the individuals that are going to be interacting with our members on a daily basis, what expectations do you have of our members, and what expectations would you say the offices of the Grand Chapter have of our members?
It all starts with our bond, and whenever you take the bond, and I don't want to ruin it for those candidates who are going through that process, but you make 3 promises. I'll say that, and those promises I think are critical. Anytime you make promises to people that you are a person of your word and you hold up to those promises. So it starts there. It also expands over to our values of love, charity, and esteem, and how we can essentially take the values of TKE and expand them further and live them every single day. My expectation for our members as they walk on campus and they operate as a group, that people look up to them. Those guys do things the right way. Those are people that we want to aspire to engage with and interact with. I want the professors on campus, the administrators on campus, to look at Teke as a huge benefit to the campus. And in too many places, Greek life has not looked at that. It's looked as a stain or something that's challenging or something that the campus, they reluctantly operate in conjunction with, versus being a real asset to the community. And I know we have Teke chapters across the U.S. and Canada who are those assets, but an expectation is that they are treating their men the right way. They are being gentlemen on campus. They are doing well in the classroom. They are doing well on the athletic field. They are doing well, right? Every single aspect. We talk about our theme of the biennium is the expectation of excellence. We want excellence in everything that we do. And we also want to make sure that we're engaging with our alumni and finding ways that we can bring them back into the fold. And being an organization that has a 121-year heritage, those men have had a myriad of experiences, but bringing them back into the experience that we have now, which is the expectation of excellence, but also enjoying every single aspect of this fraternity. And that includes the social aspect. There's a lot of work that we want to get done, a lot of great things that we want to accomplish on campus and in the community. At the end of the day, we also want to celebrate those successes as a brotherhood. And so it really, to me, it's every single aspect, Alex, that we want to be pushing and promoting excellence and creating a demand. And that's the piece you hear me talk about many times with our professional staff. You know, there's always a line when you go to Starbucks. There are always people when you go to the Apple store. There's always people hunkered around different devices ready to purchase them, right? Same aspect with Teke. We want people lined up around the block that they want to be part of our fraternity because of how we elevate people, how we get the most out of them, and the fact that we act in a certain way and bring a certain value to everything we participate in.
Yeah, and that's on every single slide that these members are going to view throughout this process. Every single PowerPoint is the expectation of excellence, and hopefully that's something that that speaks to them and drives them forward throughout this tough time and even beyond that. The last question I have for you: how can our members best take advantage of the offices of the Grand Chapter and all that we offer?
Well, there's many ways. I shared a little bit about taking advantage of the website. Our guys are spending a lot of time putting resources there. But many times our members don't take advantage of the fact that we have a professional staff who is there to help. And when I say help, what's an example of that? These guys are there to help you build a budget if you need help building a budget. They're guys who are helpful to talk about recruitment and what's your plan and how do you go about it. Guys who at times will come and sit down and lead an officer retreat. The great thing about this time and the quarantine is I think we're getting more adept at using Zoom. So that's something in the future maybe able to do where, hey, for myself and for others, we can jump on a Zoom call with your officers and walk through an officer retreat for 30 or 45 minutes or an hour and do an activity with them and get them thinking and prepared even further. And that obviously expands over to the BOA and engaging with them as well. People who can literally walk through any issue and at least give advice or point you in the right direction of another resource, because too many times we try to do it alone and we don't take advantage of the resources that we have. We don't take advantage of the expertise of our professional staff. Or again, if we don't have every single answer, because I know, we're not perfect either, right? We can point you to a great resource that you can take advantage of. So using those relationships, using those resources is the most critical aspect in my mind, and something that I would like to see every member take advantage of the relationships and the professional staff experience that we have.
Yeah, and it starts with hopefully what they're doing right now and watching this video and taking in education, whether they just joined a few weeks ago or whether they've been a member for 3 years or 10 years, really truly taking advantage of the information we're putting out there in this time to make themselves better whenever we start back up. That was the last question. Like I said, is there any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our new members or otherwise?
I want to thank all the collegiate members. I want to thank the new members. Also want to thank our volunteers, everybody who's a part of our Teke family. And especially in this time, which is extremely challenging, and being quarantined and working from home, you're more important than ever in helping to keep this Teke engine moving forward. And I'm appreciative, Alex, of the opportunity to say a few words, and grateful for everybody who's continuing forward in the new member education process, and for all of the collegiate members who are continuing to learn about the fraternity, engage in it, and be prepared when we can all be together physically again.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Donnie, for joining us. I think a lot of good information. Hopefully our members take advantage of it and continue to take advantage of not just these videos, everything else that's being put out there. Appreciate your time. And I know we will all be hearing from you much more as a fraternity in the coming weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you again to Donnie for joining us, and hopefully you picked up some good information. You can tell how passionate he is about this organization. You can tell how much he wants you as an individual to be successful, and I think that's really important in our leader, someone that cares and is invested in your success just as much as you're invested in the success of the fraternity. That is all that we have in terms of our content for this first lesson. So yeah, hopefully you took some good information away. A lot of it was information that you may have already learned or already heard, but maybe we offered a new perspective on it or a little more information that you didn't already have. I do have some pieces for you moving forward. So the first is the Teke guide. I talked about that already, chapters 1 and 2. That's where I pulled this information from, but there is a lot more available in the Teke guide that I didn't touch on, that I didn't want to spend a ton of time on, but go ahead and read those first 2 chapters. Read them again, read them for the first time. You're going to learn a lot about who we are as Tekes by consuming that information. I would also encourage you, if you're going to go through this process start to finish with us, start a Teke education journal. That might be pen and paper. That might be a Google Doc. That might be a Microsoft Word document, something in your notes section on your phone. But start a journal where you can reflect on your readings. Think about, what are the major takeaways of what you just read? What are 2 or 3 things I can write down that I want to make sure I remember about the information I just consumed? What's the importance of the information? Why is it necessary that I just learned that I just read that? Why did the Teke staff take the time to put that in the Teke guide? Evaluating that and debriefing that on an individual basis is only going to enhance your understanding. I also want to make a challenge. And that challenge is, in the next week, put together a virtual Brotherhood event. This could be, again, for our new members, this could be with your pledge class, this could be with our officers and your officer group, could be with the entire chapter, could be with your alumni. Do something to stay connected to one another. And I think that's one of the most important things. That's a lot of what our next lesson is going to focus on, is staying connected, even in the times of social isolation and social distancing. But I'm challenging you between this time and the next time that we fire these videos up. So on the timeline that we're looking at, that would be next Thursday. Put something together, put a Zoom meeting together, put a conference call together, start a group text message where you can just talk and unwind for a little bit and stay connected to those that are close to you in your chapter and in your organization. I want to see you all do that. Obviously, I have no way to check in and make sure it's happening, but hopefully that is something that you have done already. And if you have not, that you take the time to do. And then lastly, looking at our next lesson, which that video is available right now. You can go watch it right after this one. We're going to be talking about some different study tips, some different ways to get ready for the end of the semester, finals, group projects, things like that. And this time of social distancing, we're not in a situation that we've ever experienced before. Most of you who have taken finals before in college, this is a completely different outlook as to what you might have expected finals to look like. And we're going to hopefully give you some help and give you some tips on how to manage that, and also work through your mental health, your mental well-being in this time where you don't have that connection, you don't have that closeness that you strive for, and that really you probably joined Teke for with your brothers. We're going to have a guest speaker, Cole Connor, who is our Collegiate Advisory Committee chairman, who is still in college, but is the official representative of the collegiate voice for the fraternity. He's going to join us and talk about some of his different habits and tips and techniques as a student at the University of Houston. So hopefully you take that in and you join us. Hopefully you took away some lessons from this presentation, and those can continue to apply as we go through the next month. So thank you all. Looking forward to talking to you again soon. Goodbye.